What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Teed Up. I'm your host, Pierre, Pee Wee the Plug, Andreessen. We are back with another episode closer and closer to the NBA season starting back. We had a lot of stuff unraveling yesterday or the previous days with the NBA Media Day being around the corner. We also, starting the year off just on a sour note. Let's just get it out of the way. Fred VanVleet, we all got the notification. Another injury before the season is here. We're now down with Tatum, Halliburton, Damian Lillard, DeJounte Murray is fighting back from his injury. Tyler Hero just had foot surgery, so he'll be missing time to start the season for the Heat. We now got Fred. Anthony Davis might not be healthy to start the season. Like Joel Embiid, how could I forget Embiid? Paul George, just a tough time for NBA fans. Luckily, the league is more talented as it's ever been. So we still have a lot of guys that we can look forward to watching. There's still a lot of storylines and different things like that. But the Rockets were one of my big sights to see this year. And I was fully invested on watching and just seeing how they are able to navigate the Western Conference and seeing how good they can be. And Fred is a big hit for this team. The veteran leadership that he brings on the court, and we've seen his impact since he's gotten to Houston. And now them having this championship level team with Kevin Durant, Dorian Finney-Smith, Clint Capella, all of these big names coming to Houston. This is such a big blow. Such a big blow. And again, it changes the dynamics of the NBA, because I definitely looked at Houston to be one of those teams that could challenge Oklahoma City Thunder or Denver Nuggets out west for a championship run. And a lot of conversations have happened. There were immediately people saying, hey, go get Russ, Ben Simmons. And we found out quickly that the Rockets are just not in a position from a cap and roster standpoint to go out and use a minimum level contract on a Russell Westbrook or Ben Simmons. And the earliest they would be able to go and make a move without having to trade away an Amin Thompson, Sengun, or Atari Eason, Reed Shepard, guys that we know that they're not going to move anytime soon, is December. And that's the outlook that I have on Houston. I think that they don't have to panic. And we're going to talk a little bit deeply into this when we get to the main meat and potatoes of the show. But I do feel for them. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of talent here. I think a lot of pressure now goes on Reed Shepard to be able to deliver and at least hold down the fort. But yeah, man, more devastating news to start the season. And I don't know. There are some questions to be had about the injuries in the NBA. I'm not a anatomy person. I don't necessarily have all of the answers, but I do sit and wonder, what are the issues that's happening around the league with these lower body injuries? It's just kind of mind blowing. We got three Achilles? No, DeJounte Murray also was an Achilles injury, if I'm not mistaken. That's 4 Achilles injuries to some prime time guys in a handful of months. And I think that's probably the most, Christian, you can fact check me if I'm wrong, I think that's probably the most Achilles injuries we've had at once, or we're dealing with at once. And so, again, I don't know the answer. I don't know what's making all of this happen, but it is something that kind of crossed my mind to, figure out exactly what are we doing. One of the things I will say about a lot of the injuries really quickly is I do think in youth basketball, we're playing so much basketball that by the time our young players reach the NBA, their bodies are all already have so many miles on them that they're prepared to now break down. The real grind of your body physically is supposed to be the NBA. That's when the mileage is supposed to pile up, because it's the 82-game season, the playoffs, the physicality, the best league in the world against the best talent. You know what I mean? The floor being so much bigger than all of the amateur size floors. But it's by the time some of these kids get to, or not even kids, some of these young men get to the NBA, they've played thousands of games of AAU and high school basketball, and then they're playing, summer basketball outside of AAU. You got guys playing, Eurobasket, college basketball, and it's a rookie now has the mileage of a maybe 4-year pro. because of the amount of basketball that has been played, and I just don't think that helps us. So we got to knuckle down and really figure out the science behind some of these things, because as a fan of the game, I'm tired of losing a lot of these players. And again, it changes the dynamic of the landscape of the NBA. And we already have a Eastern Conference that we're looking at as vulnerable and weak. I don't want to see the same thing happen to the Western Conference. Media Day. Media Day seemed exciting. Some of the things that stood out to me, Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson looks like he's in some shape that we've never seen him in. He looks physically really, really good. He slimmed down. He said this is the best he's felt since college. And I hope that this can materialize into Zion being that player that we saw from him in college. So that has me real excited. That was probably the most exciting thing that I saw from some of the media day. We'll have more unravel the rest of the week goes. Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is the gift that keeps giving. He apparently said that he's spending about $250 a day on Uber since coming to Brooklyn from Denver. I found that is very interesting. As somebody who spent a lot of time in New York, I don't know where the hell Michael Porter Jr. is traveling to. I'm not here to say it's cheap, but $250 a day, my goodness. So Christian just gave me a little note, a stat. From 1990 to 2023, 45 NBA players tore their Achilles, a rate of 1.36 per season. 8 players tore their Achilles in the past year. 8 players. So that's Christian. Can you remind me really quick of the players? Because I named Damian Lillard, my boy Tyrese Halliburton. Shout out to Hallie. I also named Jason Tatum and DeJounte Murray. So I can only off the top of my mind name the 4. There from the Miami Heat. Yes. He did, James Wiseman. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. So yeah, man. That's one of my biggest fears as well. And like I'm not an NBA player, but a lot of times when I'm hooping, and I think Kenny, shout out to Kenny for putting this in my mind, where it's like tearing your Achilles and you're not a professional basketball player is just like it's insane. So shout out to all the guys bouncing back from the Achilles injuries. We miss you. We love you. I'm not gonna waste too much time. Today's episode is a question for all 30 teams going into this upcoming season. I'm going to be transparent and honest. I tried to get creative. I tried to make it, as good as I can. Some of these teams have the same question. It ain't my fault. It just is what it is. And I'm gonna start with those teams. I'm going to piggyback off of talking about the New Orleans Pelicans. As excited as I was at seeing Zion Williamson be in the shape that he was in, you got Jordan Poole and Zion and DeJounte Murray. They do the photo shoot. Trey Murphy the third. Everything is looking cool. Everything is looking sexy. There are some things that you like about their team in the direction. But then when you really, really think deeply about everything that's happened over the summer, you have to ask yourself with the New Orleans Pelicans, what's the actual plan? That's the question for the Pelicans. What is the actual plan? This is the reason I say this. They're one of those teams that has a lot but has nothing at the same time. Or they have a lot, but they don't have a lot to show for it. And what I mean by that is you have Herb Jones, who is an all-defensive first-team level player and defender in this league, who is also coming off of an injury. You have Zion Williamson, who was deemed as once a generational talent, who has not been able to really consistently be on the floor. I think he played like 33 games last year. But even in those 33 games, I was excited because he looked in good shape then. He was moving real swift and fast. And to see him double down and go the extra mile on his body got me even more excited. Yves Missy, you have Jordan Poole. You still have DeJounte Murray. You have Jordan Hawkins. You have Jose Alvarado, Trey Murphy III. You then draft Jeremiah Fears. You drafted Derek Queen. Not only did you draft Derek Queen, you traded your future first-round pick for this upcoming offseason, 2026, for Derek Queen. And then Joe Dumars talks about the idea of like the playoffs not necessarily being the end all be all. So it's kind of like you invested so much into this team and you don't even really have a real astronomical goal. And it's just like, again, what's the plan? is you're not in position to really trade Zion. At this point, it feels like you would get pennies on a dollar. You finally traded Brandon Ingram. You have trade like it's just so much redundancy in his lineup. You have guards, you have wings, you have bigs, just to win 35 games potentially. Now, I will say, in the perfect world, Zion is completely healthy, and him and Jordan Poole and Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, that's enough to compete for a play-in spot or the back end of the first round to get into the playoffs and face a OKC Thunder team or Denver Nuggets in the first round, and that's a step in the right direction. But when your GM goes up to the podium and isn't really saying that that's the goal, it kind of makes things a little shaky. I think this question also applies to the Portland Trail Blazers. What's the plan with the Blazers? Now, I love the story about Damian Lillard coming back to Portland. But then I also remember real quickly that you invested a third overall pick into Scoot Henderson, and we still haven't seen you guys really like push him to being the future guard of your franchise. And it felt like that was the case in the summer when you traded Anthony Simons. And it's like, okay, boom, you just cleared open the keys for Scoot to take on that challenge of becoming the face, or not even the face, but the future point guard of this team. And then you go out and you sign Damian Lillard. If I'm Scoot Henderson, I'm like, damn, like I'm kind of in a lose-lose because there's nothing I'm going to be able to do to really like take over this team from Dame. And Dame is not a guy on his Achilles injury that we're looking at to just sign with Portland and heal from his injury and just like ride off into retirement. I think Damian Lillard is rehabbing to come back and be a top 5 point guard. He's trying to return to all-star status, to all-NBA status. That's the Damian Lillard that we all know, and that's the Damian Lillard who we all fell in love with the moment he came into the NBA. So if you're Scoot Henderson, it's like, what are we going on? I think some of the same things apply with the Blazers that apply with the Pelicans. There's a lot going on, but very little showing for it. Jeremy Grant contract. You got Drew Holiday's contract now. You finally got rid of Aiden to clear out minutes for Donovan Clingan. You have Denny. You have Shaden Sharp that you're trying to figure out. You have, again, Scoot and Damian Lillard. And you also just drafted Yang. And so you still have Time Lord. Like, there's a lot going. Tamani Kamara, I almost forgot him. There's so many moving pieces. And I do like the way that they played towards the end of the season last year. But again, with the Western Conference being so competitive, what's the best case scenario for the Blazers? That they can get the 10th seed, that they can get the 9th seed and fight for a play-in spot and potentially, just to lose the play-in to one of those better teams at 7 or 8? Because even a team like the Spurs, who we'll get to, it feels like this isn't necessarily their year either. They still feel like they potentially could be a year or so away from really going up and shooting up the Western Conference. And so with a team being led by Vic and Fox still kind of being in that 6-7 range, if they're in that range, then yeah, Portland's best case scenario is what, the 9 or 10 seed? And that's me being generous. So I just don't understand what the true direction and plan for a team like New Orleans or Portland just yet. I'm excited for Donovan Clingan. I love the story of Dame returning. I'm a big fan of Shaden Sharp. I like Denny. I like Too Many Cameras. But how do we take all of this and point it to the proper direction? You know what I mean? Like, what's the core? How do we pivot from Jeremy Grant's contract? How do we make sure that we're properly developing a Shaden Sharp or a Scoot Henderson for them to take this franchise? Like, is this a youth movement or is it not? Just really confusing to me. I'm gonna stay on this path of some of these teams that aren't going to be at the top of the conferences, and I'm gonna go with the Washington Wizards. They don't have the same questions as the Pelicans or the Blazers of like, what's the actual plan? I get the plan clearly with the Wizards. They've been rebuilding, significantly over the last few years, and I think they've done a really good job. My question for them, though, is throughout the good job that they're doing, is there enough development for everyone? So this is one of the issues that I run into with certain teams. where they just become like buyers and buyers and buyers. So they got AJ Johnson, they got Cam Whitmore, they've drafted Bub, they've drafted Keyshawn George, they've drafted Sarr, Bilal, they still have Corey Kispert. And on top of that, you also got Middleton, you got CJ McCollum now. There's just so much going on that I worry if all of the guys that they're banking on will be able to get the proper development. You know what I mean? It's only so many minutes to go around. Somebody's now going to be the odd man out. And who is that going to be? And even when you flip some of these older guys, you're probably going to get more youthful talent coming through the door. And they're buying and buying and buying. And now, just the wing position. I love Keyshawn George, but now he's competing with Bilal. He's competing sometimes with Sarr. He's going to compete with Cam Whitmore. They just drafted Trey Johnson, so you now have Trey Johnson, Carrington. Again, you still have some of these vets that are going to, require some minutes, like Middleton and CJ McCollum, Corey Kispert. It feels like it's been long overdue. I thought they would trade him maybe last year, and he feels like a guy that could really be a big time boost to one of these playoff teams. I would have liked him a lot with the Detroit Pistons. So again, is there enough development for everyone? Because they've invested a lot into the youth movement. I think that they've done a really good job with the youth movement, but now I'm at the point where I'm kind of concerned because I have some guys I'm a big Keyshawn George fan, and I don't want him to get lost in the development of everybody else. I like Cam Whitmore. I wanted Cam Whitmore to be able to leave the Rockets to come to a place where he'll be able to really expand. And the idea is that he could do that with the Wizards because they're not as competitive as the Rockets, but they're still going to compete on in a developmental mindset. Like Keyshawn George deserves to play 30 minutes a game, but so does Cam Whitmore, and so does Bilal. And shit, even if Corey Kispert doesn't deserve 30 minutes, he deserves 25 to 27. Bub Carrington deserves the reps there. So does the Trey Johnson, the 5th overall pick that you just like. It's a lot going on at once, and I'm just very interested to see how they figure it out. And I'm kind of nervous. Because I feel like Washington, up to this point, has executed as well as any of these other teams. They've executed almost perfectly, and they've positioned themselves to where the next time, if possible, they win the lottery, that new star or young star that comes to Washington is going to be surrounded with a lot of really good talent. Like, I really think the NBA is lucky that a guy like Cooper Flagg didn't come to Washington. The NBA should hope that like a Peterson, a Boozer, a DeBonsa does not end up in Washington. Because if they are able to land one of these super, super hyped up young stars out of one of these drafts, the surrounding pieces will be in place for a young juggernaut team to reemerge over the next few years. Kind of how like OKC, it's a little different because OKC didn't necessarily draft every single body. Shea was acquired, but like now do you see all the youth and all of the stars aligning for OKC? It's kind of scary because it's like, shit, when will this ever slow down? This is a young team with young stars and young complementary players. They got Casey Wallace, Nikola Topic, Chet Holmgren, J-Dub, the other Jalen Williams. You have Shea, Lou Dort. Everybody's young. AJ Mitchell, Casey Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe is on the younger side. Like the entire roster is young and only getting younger with all of the assets they continue to use each and every draft. And I think the Wizards could be I don't want to put them on the same level as the Thunder, but in the next year or so, if they're able to win the lottery, this could get really scary in the next coming years for the Eastern Conference. Cooper, if you was able to roll out a lineup in Washington that was Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George, Bilal, Cooper Flagg, Sarr, that would have been a really, really, really interesting, young, fun team to think about in the next 3 or 4 years. And now I think about them the same way, but with maybe a Boozer, a Peterson, or DeBonsa. Like, if you get AJ DeBonsa on this team, or DeBansa, the switchability, the size, the upside defensively, just like, oh man, this team, yeah, you give them one of those top guys, and I think in the next 3 years, we're looking at Washington to be one of those scary young teams that could take over the NBA. Utah Jazz, is it top pick or bust for the Utah Jazz? Like, is that the only way that this rebuild can start to make some type of sense? Like, is it win the lottery or nothing? Because they've had a boatload of first round picks over the last few years, lottery picks, um, picks all over the place, top 10 picks. They just now had another top 10 pick. And with all of this talent, this influx of talent that's been coming in and out over the last few years, but a lot of this young talent, it still feels like they don't have a core. They're not one of their first round picks has really like stuck. They've been impressive. They've had moments, they've had flashes. I don't want to dismiss them entirely. Walker Kessler's rookie year was damn good. But then the sophomore year was a little iffy, and the Jazz didn't know if they were truly committed. He's been on a trade block. Even that kind of shocked me. I'm like, man, Walker Kessler, like, I know he had an up and down sophomore season, but the trade block, I still feel like there's something there. Cal Filipowski showed some things last year. Isaiah Collier showed some things last year. But again, nobody has shown enough where it's like they're part of the core. Now we're optimistic and we're hopeful for some jumps, right? Like, I think I would love to see Keontae George put it all together for a season. I would love to see Bryson Sabak take a step this year. I'm still a believer in Taylor Hendricks. Cody Williams didn't have the greatest rookie year, but he's young. You know, those young rookie years, they don't define your career. He could silence all of that with a really strong sophomore campaign. There are some things that are here to believe in, but again, we're asking these questions for 8 or 9 prospects. And for most teams being 2 to 3 years into the rebuild, you would love some concrete foundation of a young core. Something. And I just don't know if we have that yet with Utah. And as a basketball fan, seeing them collect all those assets when they let go of Rudy, when they let go of Donovan, and they pivoted to a hard set rebuild, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a little bit disappointing. It's been a little disappointing that they don't have yet a guy or two that they are legitimately saying this is the core. And it confuses me a little bit with them as well because Larry Marketing isn't getting any younger. And before we know it, we're going to be asking ourselves, does he fit the timeline? That fast, does Larry Marketing fit the timeline? And again, Utah, like a lot of the other teams, they're in the Western Conference. So their rebuild, I think, is going to be a little bit prolonged as well because some of these top teams out West don't look like they're going to give up their spots anytime soon. When you're an Eastern Conference team, I think there's some wiggle room for you to maybe quickly get the rebuild going and starting seeing some of the success. Like we saw the Magic quickly turn things around once they were able to piece some of their picks together and whatnot, and they've gotten better and better and better. I think again, the next few years, depending on how the Wizards go, that would be nice. We saw what the Detroit Pistons were able to do. They were a laughing stock, and then they were one of the toughest teams of any of those top teams had to see in the first round last year. It's a little hard to do that out West. It's going to be very hard for these bottom feeding teams out West to like turn around the season like the Detroit Pistons and be in the playoff mix. It's just very hard to picture that because even some of the established teams that we're going to get to in a second, I'm not even sure if they're cemented in the Western Conference anymore. And that's a segue for me to get to a team like the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm kind of jumping all over the place. I put this in alphabetical order, but I kind of like where I'm going here. So keep up with me, y'all. My question for the Grizzlies is, what is a successful season for them? And what I mean by that is, based off this offseason and the end of last year, there's an expectation that the Memphis Grizzlies and their organization is like looking for or seeking. They fired Taylor Jenkins. even though the Grizzlies were they were solid. He was doing good for what he had. There was a lot going on there, and I still feel like he had them in a good place. Yeah, there was a stretch from the All-Star break into late March or whatever where you didn't get the results you necessarily wanted to see. Sometimes that happens, and again, Ja had joined the team late. There's a lot of different excuses that I think were legitimate for Taylor Jenkins, but they chose to go a different route. The timing of that was interesting as well. But then you go in from that, Isolo goes into the playoffs coaching them. They lose to OKC Thunder, who are the eventual champions. Ja Morant gets hurt in the playoff series again. And then you go into the offseason and you trade Desmond Bane. So these loud, big, strong moves tells me that the Grizzlies, they aren't happy with what's happening, and they have a higher expectation. But when I look at a team like the Grizzlies, and it's kind of like what I was saying with the Jazz, I don't see the Grizzlies being able to maintain with the top of the Western Conference. So what exactly does the organization and the front office of the organization for the Grizzlies, what are they expecting? Do they believe that a Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson-led team is a championship-esque team? Do they believe that they are still what they were a few years ago when Ja Morant was really ascending into the MVP territory? Because since Ja Morant has had his injuries, since his suspension, a lot has changed out west. The Lakers now have Luka. Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves kind of became what we looked at the Grizzlies to be, right? We looked at the Grizzlies to be the team that was going to be going to the back-to-back conference finals or whatever, and it kind of changed and shifted where Anthony Edwards took the position of Ja Morant, and the Timberwolves took the position of what the Grizzlies were. Not only that, since that time of the Grizzlies being that really strong team and looking like one of the top future teams of the Western Conference, the Oklahoma City Thunder have emerged as not only a championship team, the reigning champs, but a team that is positioned to go on a run. And I know we've said that about previous teams. The Denver Nuggets looked like that after they won their first one. It was like, man, who's going to be able to stop Jokic and Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon? Like, this team could maybe do this a couple of times over the next few years. Then Boston dominated the NBA, and it was like, wait, hold up. This is one of the best starting fives we've ever seen. They maybe can go on a little run. They could repeat. They may three-peat. And then obviously we've seen what happened with the Celtics. This Thunder team, as good as the Nuggets and the Celtics were when we were saying those things, because it was reasonable to have those thoughts about the Nuggets and the Celtics. No, this Thunder team looks like they can legitimately start a mini dynasty, not only based off of what they have today, but the assets that allow them to be big time players even during the tomorrows of the NBA, right? Like, they are loaded with asset after asset after asset. They have this team's pick, that team's pick. Every time you hear about a big injury that can set a team back for the upcoming season, you find out that the Thunder are somehow tied into the ownership of that draft pick. It's like, oh man, yeah, our best player, he might be out, and we'll just get a top 5 pick. And then you go and you do your research, and it's like, oh my gosh, we can't even sell the season, because if we do, the fucking Thunder own our draft pick. And so the rich just continue to get rich and rich and rich. And I think they're going to be able to be a team that is flexible with the second apron, the first apron, and everything. Because though they're paying Chet, Shea, J-Dub, all of these big major bucks, they're going to be able to keep a revolving door of top-end role players because of the assets. So they'll be able to go out and get the Carusos of the NBA. They'll be able to go out and get the Isaiah Hardensteins because they have the draft capital. And even on a trade where they got Caruso, they didn't even have to really use any. I don't even think they gave up. Did they even give up a second round pick or anything? I can't remember, but I remember walking away from that trade being like, "Damn, that's all the Bulls got." Like, you couldn't just like get one of the picks from the Thunder. They have like 1,000 to kind of just give away, and it's like, nah, they're not wasting any of their assets. So to go back to the Grizzlies, I sometimes look at the Grizzlies and think like it's the best case scenario for the Grizzlies, like the 6th seed. And if they are the 6th seed, will that satisfy their front office enough? Is there anything here that can be saved? Or are we literally just waiting for the inevitable where they kind of part ways with Ja Morant? Because I'll be honest with you, looking at the roster, I like some of the things that they have going on. I'm a big fan of what Scottie Pippen Jr. was able to do. I love that they brought back Santi Aldama. We love Jalen Wells. Shedrick Coward should be a really good pick. I'm still interested in seeing what happens with the Gigi Jacksons and the Vince Williams Juniors of the world. They got big fella Zach Edey. And as many things that I'm naming that's positive, I still don't know if that team gets you home court advantage in the Western Conference. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Ja Morant comes out and he's back to MVP level and they are a top 3 team out west. Maybe it's the Thunder, the Nuggets, and the Grizzlies. And if I am, then I'll eat my words and I'll quickly reshift my thinking. But if this team is just another year into the play-in, if that's the best that this team can do, then what is the pivot, right? Like, what is the goal here? Is it a full set rebuild? Do you trade Ja Morant? You go into a full rebuild, right? Like, I'm kind of losing my place with the Grizzlies a little bit, and it feels like some of their actions is saying, "Hey, we want to get back to the championship level or contention level," and I'm not sure if that is realistic enough. At least right now. At least right now, because some of the things that I named, they maybe could position themselves to get somebody. But I mean, the last few guys that were available doesn't seem like they wanted to go. They didn't get Kevin Durant. They weren't able to get Jimmy Butler. And those feel like the two type of players that would have really elevated them back into that conversation. And when you look around the NBA, I don't see who could become available on a realistic scale that can help elevate them back to that level, right? If Giannis were to request a trade a couple months into the season, they're not a destination for him. If LeBron James and the Lakers can't figure things out, LeBron ain't going to the Memphis Grizzlies. If Kawhi and the Clippers get, punished by the NBA and, his contract is voided, is he going to Memphis? I don't think so. So now it's like the conversations for them is like, should they get DeMar DeRozan? It's like, oh man, like I don't know where we're going with Memphis. And it's sad because not that long ago, they were on the up and up. Speaking of the Clippers, that's my question for them. What's the plan if the NBA does, in fact, drop the hammer on the Clippers? I know a lot of us, myself, I'm not anticipating that the Clippers are going to get like the hammer, but I don't know anything. That's just me guessing. In a world where they do find legitimate evidence to suspend Kawhi, to void his contract, whatever, all of these harsh things, what's the plan? There's been reports that I've seen where it's like, hey, the Clippers are preparing and getting their things situated to make a run at Giannis or Jokic. And it's like, miss me with the pipe dream shit. Like the entire NBA is going to try to make a run at Giannis or Jokic. But at the same time, we don't look at those as realistic options as far as free agency. It seems like Nikola Jokic is perfectly fine and happy in Denver. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, if you want him, it feels like you're going to have to trade him, and him or the Bucks are going to have to really come out and say he's available. And up to this point, he's been reluctant to say it. He throws out hints and everything, and we'll get to all of that. But the Bucks don't seem like they're in any rush to make that decision either. So yeah, this team is older, which I didn't look at as too much of a negative for this upcoming season. I still thought that they were going to have enough talent to be able to compete in the Western Conference. I thought Kawhi, James Harden, Zubac, Brook Lopez, Bradley Beal, Chris Paul, Derrick Jones Jr., Chris Dunn. I felt that was enough talent and depth to be able to overcome the quote-unquote older team, right? Experience, talent, and depth would be able to kind of preserve some of those bodies and not have to put too much wear and tear during the regular season. And all together in the Western Conference, during the playoffs, they were going to have, legitimate depth that would give them an advantage over a lot of other teams. But if the Kawhi Leonard situation gets resolved and the hammer does come down, I don't know what's going to be next for the Clippers. James Harden ain't getting no younger. Some of those key names that I just named, they're pushing towards 40. Chris Paul, Brooke Lopez. These are like near 40-year-old veterans that you just don't have too much time and too much wiggle room with. Now, on the other side, I do believe that the NBA, when they do make a decision, they'll probably wait to the offseason. And that's the best bet for the Clippers, is that this gets resolved during the offseason. So whether the hammer gets put down or not, you'll get to run the course with this group and this unit for this season and see how far you can take it. But I am very interested to see what's the next phase for the Clippers. They've invested so much into Paul George, Kawhi, James Harden, and I feel like they haven't been able to get the return on their investment. And now we're getting all of these reports that the Clippers are kind of done building around Kawhi. And coincidentally, these reports are happening after this little investigation has come out and whatnot. But I think the Clippers have came a long way from the Paul George Kawhi era, and to see we kind of are getting to the near end of it. And there's not much to really show for it. And it's bittersweet. And it just makes me think, like what would be the next move for the Clippers, or the next phase of them trying to outshine or outwork the big brother of LA? Because the Lakers went out and said, hey, that was cute. Y'all had got Paul George and Kawhi after we got LeBron, and y'all were trying to steal the thunder. Yeah, y'all made y'all own little dome over there. Y'all don't have to play over here in the crypto no more. That's cute. You know what? Since y'all think y'all can compete with us and y'all want to, try to fight us for control of the city, we'll just go get Luka Doncic. And now we're back to being the big brothers of the city. That little Kawhi Leonard era that got y'all all excited, that's going to dwindle down. James Harden is, 36? He's in his mid-30s. We'll have Luka over here for the next 10 years, and we're going to position ourselves to win a championship again before y'all are ever able to get one. So the Clippers got a lot to figure out there. I'm still excited for the season for them, because I do think that veteran team could be special in one way or another. The Lakers, the other LA team, the big brother of LA. Very simple. How do you pivot from LeBron? And I feel like the Lakers are probably asking themselves this question as well, because it's LeBron James. This isn't the typical year 22, year 23 player, right? He's still playing some all-star level basketball, all-NBA basketball. But you did go get Luka. And this is one of the first times in LeBron James's career where another player is being prioritized over him. And I talked about this when they first got Luka. It's going to be interesting to see how LeBron and his team and everybody is able to navigate knowing that everything won't be catered to them, because that's all LeBron and, his team, that's all they know, is everything being manufactured to fit and complement LeBron James. And now, again, for one of the first times in his entire career, if not the first time, legitimately the first time, the Lakers are going to go into the decision-making rooms, and they're going to have conversations, and they're going to be about Luka. Does this player fit Luka? Will this complement Luka? And it's interesting because obviously there's been some fake tension. I don't want to speak too confidently on it, but like LeBron, his future, will they trade him? If you trade him, how does that happen? As you build this team while he's on the team, do you consult him? Is it strictly just a Luka thing? Like, even Luka signed his extension, and LeBron and Bronny wasn't there. It's just like, how do the Lakers comfortably pivot from LeBron? I don't know. I can't figure out the answer, and I'm just very curious to see how this happens. Now, outside of LeBron James and for the upcoming season, I want to know, how are they going to be able to get stops? How can the Lakers comfortably and confidently get stops when it matters? Because, again, LeBron is 40 years old, and it's just too much, in my opinion, to ask him to be the guy that is like the catalyst to this defense having success. We saw last year in the playoffs, you're taxing Luka so much on the offensive end, and just with his foot speed, as much as he's going to slim down, it's going to be very hard for him to be a stopper. There's no case scenario or no situation where Luka's your stopper. Same thing with Austin Reeves. And I think Austin Reeves had a really solid year last year for the Lakers defensively as an individual defensive player. But I think it's out of his element to ask him to be your stopper. DeAndre Ayton has never been known in his career to really backline a defense. He did a really good job just being solid for the Suns when they went on their championship run. But that was a Suns team that had a Chris Paul, a Mikal Bridges, a Cam Johnson, a motivated Devin Booker on the perimeter. That was a really good defensive team. But when you're the Lakers and you don't really have a good defensive team or good perimeter defense, it feels like a lot is going to be thrown on the plate of a DeAndre Ayton to quote unquote anchor that defense. And so that's my biggest issue. I think the Lakers are going to be talented. I think there's a world where they get 50 wins again because Luka is so damn good. But when I think about playoff basketball and I watch how their season ended last year against the Timberwolves, that same question is present in my brain and is one of my biggest concerns for the Lakers going into this year. Who will defend for them and how will they get stops, especially timely stops, when you think about who they'll have to face in the Western Conference playoffs? Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, Victor Wembanyama potentially. Like there are some guys that can win a game single-handedly that the Lakers just won't be prepared to stop or have an answer for. And as great as Luka can be, if they're not able to get the stops, they'll have similar results to last year. The Atlanta Hawks going out east. Very simple, and it's a question that I don't think will shock many people. It's a question I think a lot of people are asking themselves. Can Trae Young be the best player on the championship team? I think this is a great time. I think it's an important time for Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. I love the position that the Hawks are in going into the season because they're going to have a lot of success or they're going to have a little success. They're going to win a lot of games or they're going to do what they regularly do. But whatever happens at the end of this year, questions will be answered and they'll have confidence in what's next. If they are able to take this roster that they've put together, which I think on paper, just on paper, is the best roster Trae Young has ever played with. He now has Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kristaps Porzingis, Luke Kennard. They have Zachary Richardson, the number 1 pick from last year. They went out. They got, Jalen Johnson is back from injury. They got Double O. They got defense. They got shooting, athleticism, rebounding. They got a pick and popper for Trae Young for the first time. And the way Kristaps Porzingis played in the Eurobasket for Latvia, he looks really, really damn good. He looks a lot better than the previous times we had saw him with the Celtics. So I'm excited for the Hawks. But with that being said, if they go out and they put together this type of roster and they put this amount of talent around Trae Young and it does not materialize into something big and major, then I think the marriage maybe ends there. I think Trae Young is a phenomenal basketball player. I think he's one of the best playmakers in the game. I think he's one of the best point guards. But I do believe myself, the Hawks, and a lot of other people around the NBA are trying to figure out where to place Trae. Is he your number 1 option? Are you building teams with Trae Young and you're building it all around him? Or is he more of a number 2? Is he a complementary piece? And it's hard to answer because we've seen Trae Young have crazy great success. That Eastern Conference run that they had was legit. They took down some really good teams and they played their ass off. And now it looks like they're reinventing this roster to fit the mold of that previous team. And if Trae Young can do it again, then, I think they've got their guy. But it's very, very, very interesting to me. And I'm super excited for Trae Young because I'm a big Trae Young fan. Trae Young is a dark horse MVP for me. I've said it once. I'll say it again. You'll probably hear me say it again before the season starts in the next few weeks. I think Trae Young could come out and have a crazy, insane year. I think this is really make or break for him, and I think it's make or break for the Hawks. If this doesn't work, the Hawks have to go into like a transitional period where they're building around Jalen Johnson and Rishashe and Asa Newell or something like that. it becomes a real youth movement. I don't think this doesn't work. And you're like, yeah, let's just trade Trey and let's bring somebody else in, and they're going to be the answer to take this roster to the promised land. And I think it's the same thing for Trey. If he still has a desire of being the face of a franchise, of being one of those star players and being a number one, he has to make it work with this roster. If this roster can't work, then I don't think that Atlanta Hawks will have confidence that any roster can. So I'm excited for that. Boston, is this gap year enough time to redirect this roster back to championship status? As much as I love Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, those championship teams were led by them, or that championship team was led by them. But man, did they have some of the best role players that we have seen in a very long time. The Drew Holidays, the Derek Whites, the Al Horfords, the Kristaps Porzingis. Now that a lot of those names, most of those names are gone. After this year, when Tatum is back fully healthy and it's him and Brown, will they be able to use whatever happens this year to bring in enough talent to put them in position to go and try to compete again and contend for a championship? Or are we going to start to see the Celtics not be that top team anymore? Right? Like, it's interesting because I respect Tatum and I respect Brown and I like their game. But when they won, those guys were the best players and they played significant parts. But I don't see them winning that championship without a Drew Holiday. Like, they needed what Drew Holiday gave them. They needed Al Horford. They needed Porzingis. And so I'm just curious, like, do they fold their hands and tank this year? Will they get to a point where they have to trade Derek White because his value is just too strong? Derek White is probably the best role player in the NBA. And there was rumored that the Celtics turned down trade offers that had 2 first-round picks. And I think that was a smart thing to do for them, because if you see what Mikal Bridges was able to get back for the Nets, because the Knicks wanted him so bad and he fit so perfectly with the Knicks. I think there's a franchise or a team out there that maybe give you something astronomical for Derek White that will position this team to be ready to go when Tatum and Brown are back on the floor together and healthy. But if they don't, yeah, do they think Brown and Tatum is enough to just lead a Peyton Pritchard and Derek White backcourt with name is Queta center or Queta center, or who else do they have? Like Chris Boucher. Like, I don't know. As good as those guys are, the NBA is showing us that you need a lot more than a 1-2 combo, right? You look at the overwhelming amount of talent that OKC has. You look at, the teams that have won recently, like, not only if they had the star players, the role players have been overwhelmingly good as well. You have the Carusos, you have the Case and Wallaces. You have the Drew Holidays and the Derek Whites. Can they redirect in just 1 year a way to get all of that type of talent back? Not the same talent, but that level of talent. And if they can, will it cost you a Derek White in the process? Because I do think Derek White is one of the best role players in the NBA. And I could see a team, let me look through. There's like, what would the Warriors give up for Derek White? Now that the Rockets have an injury to Fred VanVleet, what would they give up for Derek White? What would the Timberwolves give up for Derek White as Mike Conley has gotten older and they still have Anthony Edwards and they want to compete? Like, there are a lot of teams that I feel like would break the bank 3-4 first round picks for Derek White. Yeah, 3 or 4 first round picks. And if you're the Celtics, you may have to bite on that so that when Jason Tatum is back, you can now have a pool of assets to go and rework the roster for what you think is needed there. The Brooklyn Nets, kind of like the Utah Jazz. What happens if the Nets don't win the lottery? Like, the team that they have is just not good. I like some of the things. I like Gegard Demon. I like Michael Porter Jr. I like Nick Claxton. I kind of like Cam Thomas. But, like, together as one, it don't feel like there's nothing here that can, like, position them for any type of direction. It feels like it's win the lottery or nothing. And I think in 2027, the Rockets own the right to swap picks with them. So you kind of have to hit the lottery now. But the Nets can't afford to get like the 5th overall pick. They have to try to get their franchise foundational piece this offseason. And if they don't, it's going to be a long time before Brooklyn Net fans have anything to get excited for, unless they're able to finesse a way of getting a Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I just don't see it. I think that's a pipe dream that they're hanging on to. But I mean, when you look at this roster, man, this has to be the worst constructed roster in the NBA. I legitimately think that the Nets might win 15 games this year. They legitimately might win 15 games this year. I don't think that they handled a lot of their assets the correct way. I am happy for them that the previous year that they were able to get this or in some of the future draft picks back. But yeah, to not have that 27 is going to hurt them, because you would love to be able to just double down on being bad 2 years in a row, try to get two top 5 picks back-to-back years, and get some type of concrete foundational pieces in return or via the draft. But again, as much as I like Jaeger Demon, is anybody looking at Jaeger Demon to be the guy for the Nets? That, I mean, I guess you have no choice. I honestly guess you have no choice. I can't believe that a roster like this exists with as much talent as we have in the NBA. I mean, the roster doesn't fit. Jaeger Demon is this Josh Giddey molded type point guard who wants to push the pace and create opportunities for his teammates. But then you're putting him in a backcourt with a Cam Thomas who wants to score the basketball and, get his. Same thing with Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. seems like he's coming to this year knowing that the Nets is not a part of his future and he's not a part of theirs. This is a pit stop for him, and he wants to grow his game because he felt like he was plateauing in Denver. Like, none of this shit is a match. And I think some of it can hurt the development of a guy like Jaeger Demon. What is he supposed to do when Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas are like, man, it's my world, I'm in my bag? Like, his strength isn't to space the floor or to play off of the basketball. He's supposed to have the basketball in his hands, making things operate. And I just don't know if this current Nets team is going to be a development program for him and other rookies that they're bringing in. They spent 5 first-round picks. I think that's a record, they said. NBA 2K rebuild type shit. 5 first-round picks. They used them all. This roster is going to be a sight to see in the regular season. The Charlotte Hornets. Simple question as well. Are they still fully invested in LaMelo as the face of the franchise? And I don't think that they would be wrong if they said no, or that this is the last year to figure that out. I think this is the year where the Charlotte Hornets have to show us, the media, the fans, something. I think they have to show themselves something. They have had a lot of draft picks that have not materialized into anything, and they've kind of reset a few times, if you catch my drift. They've rebuilt the rebuild. And this is one of the best off seasons in recent memory for them. I love the way that they drafted Liam McNeely, Con Knippel, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Colin Sexton, Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, I love a lot of the moves that they made. And now with LaMelo being healthy, Brandon Miller being healthy, they have to really do something this year. They have to. And if they don't, it may be time to part ways with LaMelo Ball. But if they do, it's another year of figuring out, hey, how do we maximize LaMelo, and how do we get this team into some type of relevancy? I think some talent is here, and I think there is a scenario, where they could be a little bit more relevant. If I'm being honest, I just think that they dropped the ball on too many draft picks. Now I'm hoping John Salon is able to materialize into a true rotational piece for them and can contribute to winning. But when you think about, the JT Thors, the Kai Jones, and excuse me, the Kai Jones and the James Booknights of the world, you know, and depending on how the salon pick goes, those might be the moves that costed them a much more competent rebuild, if I'm being completely honest. The Chicago Bulls, will they ever be bad enough in the Eastern Conference to escape purgatory? Legitimate question. You went out, you signed Josh Giddey, $100 million man. You still haven't found a home for Vucevic. Kobe White is still on his roster. He's expecting, or he wants, around $30 or more million per year. You got my boy Modest Buzelis. You went and you drafted a Singe. You have Io still. Like, there's a lot of things about this roster that I don't like. But then I also remember that they're in the Eastern Conference, and the Bulls are never going to be like, when we talk about the Brooklyn Nets, the Bulls are nowhere near. The Bulls roster is a lot better than the Brooklyn Nets. I think the Bulls roster is better than the Wizards. I think the last few years they've shown us that it's better than the Hornets. The Bulls should also be a better team, than potentially the oh no, I'm sorry. The team I was going to say is going to be better. But again, you catch my drift. The Bulls are never going to be Wizards, Utah Jazz, that level. They're never going to be a team that we're looking at and it's like, oh man, they have the third highest odds to get the first overall pick. They keep finding themselves in this 9, 10, 11 range of draft picks. And the honest, the super honest and transparent thing is, those picks are not putting the Bulls in position to be able to really, comfortably reshift or redirect what they want to do. And the last time they did have a top 5 pick, they spent it on Patrick Williams. No offense to Patrick Williams, but that just didn't go anywhere. And so for the Bulls to really rebuild this roster and redirect to get somewhere, I think it's going to be to fold their hands. It's going to be to get rid of Vucevic. To get rid of, make a decision on what they want to do with Kobe White. They put their best foot forward last year. I felt like they were going in a good direction. You traded Zach. You had parted ways with DeMar. It felt like Vucevic is long overdue as well. He should have been going in those times as well. I would love to see the Bulls pull a Washington Wizards. Win 15 games one of these years. Win 18 games. Put yourself in position to go and get a Cooper Flag, a AJ DeBonsa, Victor Wembanyama. All of these quote-unquote generational talents, and it just feels like the Bulls have never really attempted or tried to throw their hat into the mix, and they're missing out on it, and they're just getting really good talent and really good players. And believe me, I'm all in on my boy Modest. That's my guy. I'm all in on him, and hopefully he can be the one or be the guy that could kickstart that. But the NBA, man, the NBA is about getting these generational talents, or these talents that can't be generational, and just going. And I'm a big fan of what the Washington Wizards are doing, and some of these other teams that have taken that type of approach. And it just feels like the Bulls are just cool with winning 40 games a year. 40 and 42 will be 10th, 9th out east. We'll play in the play-in. We'll play the Hawks or the Heat. And, we'll wait for our year to win a play-in game to play the Cavaliers or the Celtics or the Knicks in the first round and lose in 5 games and, pretend that we were excited about that. It's just a hamster wheel that just is nonstop. And I'm just, as a Chicagoan, I'm ready to see the Bulls kind of jump off of that hamster wheel and really get a concrete direction. The Cleveland Cavaliers. I got the Cavaliers and the Knicks with the same thing. If not now, when? If neither one of those teams can make it happen this season, with the Eastern Conference being, again, vulnerable, the Celtics shouldn't be a factor. The Pacers don't have Halliburton. They won't be too much of a factor for what we know them to be. Giannis probably has one of his worst rosters constructed around him on paper that we've seen since he's reached MVP status. The Knicks and the Cavaliers should really be in position to, have Eastern Conference runs and potentially the NBA Finals. And, like specifically for the Cavs, not only if not now, when, what's a realistic pivot? How much better can your roster get if you're the Cavaliers? If you don't if you don't have an Eastern Conference appearance this year, that means you probably didn't get the postseason that you wanted from Jared Allen or Darius Garland, right? And if you're not getting the production or the postseason play that you want from those guys, it's going to make it even harder to trade them and get value in return. You have a lineup that has 4 former All-Stars: Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, all at some point have been All-Stars. And then your wing position to gap all of that is Max Strus, DeAndre Hunter. You brought in Lonzo Ball. I think he could be able to fit on the floor with that 4. You have high-end talent. And still, there's no conference finals appearance to show for it. And if that happens again this year, I just don't know what you can do to make this roster too much better. Like, again, what even if you pivot away from Darius Garland and Jared Allen, what are you getting? You're not getting Giannis for those players. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you're getting a Kawhi Leonard wing, even if you feel like that's the answer. So I don't know what's next for the Cavs if they're not able to take advantage of this particular year. It feels like this is all or nothing. Feels like this is all or nothing. Last year was the first year of Kenny Atkinson. They had some injuries. But even before then, it was like, are they all in on Jared Allen? Or should Evan Mobley be the center of the future? You know what I mean? And I just don't know how much better of a roster you can get than 4 or your 5 starters being all-star level players. You know what I mean? It's just it's hard to do better than that. So I'm looking at how the Cavaliers, if they don't reach that expectations that's set for them, how can they rework this roster to be better than what they currently have? It just kind of, to me, seems a little bit unrealistic. But again, every year, somebody we're not thinking of or somebody that doesn't make all of the sense in the world becomes available. And then there's the answer. So we'll sit back and we'll patiently watch that unfold as it does. The Dallas Mavericks. What's the bigger priority this year? Winning now or developing Cooper Flag? And don't tell me that you're going to do both, because we've seen franchise after franchise after franchise try to win now and develop talent at the same time, and it never works. There's always some type of conflict. We're watching the Warriors right now. They're going through what they're going through with Jonathan Kuminga because they were trying to develop him, Moses Moody, James Wiseman, Jordan Poole, while competing for championships. And they won that championship against Boston. But as we saw, a lot of those guys weren't able to reach their fullest potential. And now you have a guy like Jonathan Kuminga saying, hey, get me out of here because I need to go somewhere where I can let my wings spread and I can really see who I am as a player. Because here, I'm not able to do that and come to that understanding. And so how much of that is on the mind of the Dallas Mavericks? Because everything Nico Harrison has said since the Luka trade is about winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. Defenses win championships, yada, yada, yada. But now you bring in a guy who some people deem as a generational talent. Do you prioritize the generational talent, or are you prioritizing the winning with the Anthony Davises of the world and the Kyrie Irvings and the Daniel Gaffors, Najee Marshalls of the world, the D'Angelo Russell? So I'm very interested to see that. I really am, especially since Kyrie is hurt. We don't know if he'll return this year. Anthony Davis might not be healthy to start the year. Are those the signs? Are those the hidden messages for us to see the Mavericks have a quote-unquote gap year or down year as well? Or are they going to get Anthony Davis out there as soon as they can? Is Kyrie going to come back late in the season and they're going to make this push, or are they going to comfortably say, hey, y'all take your time rehabbing. We're going to allow Cooper Flag to go out here and get some reps and develop without the pressure of having this winning team now. So that's just my question for the Dallas Mavericks. Luckily for them, Cooper Flag is an amazing basketball player, and I think he'll be able to figure some things out regardless. But for the true development and upside of him reaching star status, I think having that priority figured out is going to be key for them. The Denver Nuggets. Is this the best team we've seen around Jokic? Now, I'm sorry, I can't really, think of anything too crazy or too polarizing to ask for them. But I'm curious, like, is this the best team we've seen around Jokic? And if it is, can it be enough to beat the Thunder? You got Jamal Murray, he's healthy. You traded Michael Porter Jr., but I think Cam Johnson, for the system of the Nuggets and what they want to do, Cam Johnson may be an upgrade. I think he'll be a little bit better defensively, and I think he'll be a little bit more available. And I don't know. I just think that his IQ, his lateral quickness, his switchability on the perimeter allows them to have a little bit more on both sides than Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. had a lot more up and downs. And I feel like a lot of that came to sometimes him playing through injury and whatnot. I do think Michael Porter Jr. talent for talent may be better than Cam Johnson, but for the sake of the Denver Nuggets, I think Cam Johnson fits like a glove. He's the prototypical wing that you want complementing the two-man game of Jokic and Jamal Murray. But yeah, you still have Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, who had an incredible year last year. Like a really, I don't think we speak highly enough about the year he had. And now to have the bench having a true backup center in Jonas Valanciunas, you bring in Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., a fresh year with David Adelman being a coach instead of Mike Malone. This may be one of the best teams we've seen Nikola Jokic play with. And it's kind of dope to see a former MVP play with the best team he's played on at this part of his career. You know what I mean? Like, I think the sky is kind of the limit if this team materializes into what I think that they can be. And they still have the Peyton Watsons and Julian Strouthers. My boy Deron Holmes is going to be healthy this year. This Nuggets team could be a lot better than I think a lot of us are anticipating. And another ring or two for Jokic, and we have some conversations that need to be had. So I'm excited to see just how far this Nuggets team can go, because they, before the Pacers, played the Thunder better than anybody had the entire season. The entire season. Detroit Pistons. Is this the Jaden Ivey leap year? In the 30 games Jaden Ivey played before he went down with a season-ending injury, he was on his way to having a career year. I think he was putting up like 18, 4 and 4, 40% from three, career highs in field goal percentage, three-point percentage. He was balling. And now, year two of the Detroit Pistons being this rejuvenated, hard-nosed, defensive-minded playoff team, they had some key losses, right? Malik Beasley isn't on this roster anymore. And I think that was big. Dennis Schroeder is gone. He was big for them, especially in the playoffs. He hit some big shots against my New York Knicks. Jaden Ivey could alleviate some of the losses that they've had. Now, I think they did do a good job bringing in Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, and whatnot. But Jaden Ivey, I think, makes this team, if he's going to play how he did prior to his injury, he makes this team go up another level. And I think that's what they've been banking on. It was, how can the Pistons take the season they just had and build on it? Because now the rest of the NBA is going to be aware of who the Pistons are. Game plans will be installed to stop Cade Cunningham. They're going to try to take the ball out of his hands as much as possible. And without Jaden Ivey, it was like, who could be out there that could alleviate some of that from Cade Cunningham? And I think Jaden Ivey can be the answer. We also have another year of Asar, and he's going to be fully healthy coming into the year. I'm excited for the Pistons, but I am in the back of my mind a little worried, because we've seen stories like this where a team, has a really great year. They're the darlings of the NBA, but then the rest of the NBA in that second year is fully put on awareness of who you are and what you do, and you don't have the same type of season. And the other team we've seen with that was the Kings. Remember, the Kings were killing it that one year. And they went to the playoffs. They took the Warriors to 7 games. And it was like, oh, yeah, great year for the Kings. Can't wait to see them build on that and see what they do next year after having that success. And that was it. It was just like, that's done. And before you know it, De'Aaron Fox is on a new team. And it's back to what we knew the Kings to be. And I don't want to see that for the Pistons. So I'm looking at Jaden Ivey potentially having a leap allowing them to not only have the same level of success, but get even better, because that's the next phase for them. How do the Pistons take what they did last year and get even better outside of just hoping that Cade Cunningham takes these monstrous leaps and bounds every single season? Because at some point, that becomes unrealistic to just think that he's going to get better and better and better and better and better and better and better. And it's too much to put on just one player's shoulders. So Detroit, we're counting on Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson having a fully healthy year. The Golden State Warriors, do they have enough firepower? Simply, Steph Curry is Steph Curry, and he's a lot of firepower. But I look around the NBA again, and a lot of these teams are loading up. And as much as we love Jimmy Butler, as good as they were when he first got there, he's not getting any younger. This roster isn't getting any younger, and these guys are going to have to perform in the regular season and in the playoffs. They don't have anybody to kind of shoulder some of the regular season responsibility to. They're counting on these older veterans to play at all NBA level throughout the entire season, and it's not a thing where they're going to be able to coast. And when you get to the playoffs, that firepower is going to be needed to beat a Denver Nuggets, who is loaded now. It's going to be tough to beat a OKC Thunder team who's fully loaded now. Hell, the Rockets, even without Fred VanVleet, they still seem to be poised to be able to compete with the Warriors. Without Kevin Durant, they gave the Warriors a little bit, of some go. And the Timberwolves, and there's a lot of teams out west that have legitimate firepower, and I'm concerned if the Warriors will be able to match that, because they didn't do much this offseason as far as retooling this team. And the Jonathan Kuminga cloud has held a lot of things up. Luckily, a lot of the veterans that they had their eyes on, are waiting for this situation to be resolved. And at some point, they will have DeAnthony Melton, Al Horford, and Gary Payton II. But again, none of those names are looked at as firepower to kind of match a Rockets, a Luka Doncic and LeBron James Laker team. Even a Clippers team, I think, may have a little bit more firepower than the Golden State Warriors. You trust Steph Curry, you trust the system, you know what they can do defensively with Draymond quarterbacking that. But the firepower, I think, is what's helping a lot of these teams in the playoffs. And the Warriors are going to need a little bit of a punch. And maybe Jimmy Butler, with a full year under his belt with the Warriors, can add that and get back to playoff Jimmy a little bit more with that. Next, the Houston Rockets. My question for the Rockets is, should the Fred VanVleet injury make them panic? And it's an interesting concept, because I think that they're still in a great position to be able to, weather the storm. As much as you love Fred VanVleet, we talked about it early in the episode, his leadership, and everything he's been able to give the Rockets since the minute he's gotten there. You can't replace. There is no replacing that on-floor toughness and, again, leadership that he provides, and even some of the three-point shooting. Because Fred VanVleet, we saw in the playoffs against the Warriors, when things got tough, he was one of the most reliant, perimeter threats that they had. Now you add in Kevin Durant, and the puzzle was going to, kind of complete itself a little bit more better. Without a Fred VanVleet, you lean on Reed Shepherd a little bit more. I think Amin Thompson plays some of that point guard position a little bit more. But I also think you play through Alperen Sengun. Even if Fred VanVleet was healthy, you play through Alperen, a tad bit more. The Rockets are interesting in such a team that should have so much success, in my opinion, is because of all of the weapons that you have and because of the versatility and the size. I'm looking at the Fred VanVleet injury, and I'm thinking about the creative ways that Ime could go, right? Because if you put out a lineup with Amin Thompson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Sengun, that is a tall, long, versatile, potentially fast-paced, floor-stretching team that can be a handful. It really can be a handful. And again, they have until like December to see what they have. December is some of those restrictions about player signings and who can be traded and what they'll open up then, and it'll give you a clear understanding of maybe the type of point guard you need, or maybe it'll give you enough time to say, hey, maybe we don't even really need to panic at all and make a move. So That's my thoughts. But the question is, will, I guess, the Rockets panic? Will they panic? And will they feel like they need a point guard? Or there's the other mindset or the other side of what I threw out there where, maybe Reed Shepherd doesn't show that he's ready just yet, right? Maybe Amin Thompson um, playing point guard isn't producing the results that you need or that you would like to see. Maybe playing through Sengun, maybe I'm saying it in an easier said than done way, and you really do need this guard out there. So I think those are the biggest questions for the Rockets. But again, even with those questions, I think there's a huge upside of success for this season with the Houston Rockets. The Indiana Pacers, who's the odd man out? I feel like I've been asking this for a while now. As great of a year as they had last year, as great of a roster that they have with Tyrese and Nembhard and Neesmith and Pascal Siakam and Benedict Mathurin and Obi Top and TJ McConnell, somebody's got to be the odd man out. The Jarris Walkers, they apparently want to give some more responsibility to Johnny Furphy. Benedict Mathurin, he's going to be looking to get paid after the season. And that center position has to get addressed. You lost Miles Turner. And so I look at some of those names like Benedict Mathurin. I look at the Jarris Walkers, maybe even an Obi Toppin. I look at, Aaron Neesmith, and I'm trying to figure out, what combination of those players could maybe help you go get your next center for when Tyrese Halliburton comes back. Because replacing Miles Turner is going to be tough, right? He was the vet of this team. He was the longest tenured Pacer, and he gave you, some steady rim protection with the ability to be able to space the floor and fit the way that the offense likes to play. So I'm interested to see how they navigate with their assets and flip it into something that can help this team in the immediate future. Because when Tyrese Halliburton comes back, they're going to feel like they have unfinished business to handle, most definitely. Now, the Miami Heat, shout out to my girl Maddie. I know this is going to be tough for her to hear, but will they ever blow it up? Will they ever blow it up? In my lifetime, that's not really what the Heat do. Um, and they've had success in really like retooling and refiguring things out. Pat Riley not getting the job done right now. They don't seem to be this destination that they once were. And I don't like the roster. My confidence in the roster is not there. The last few years, we've kind of gotten the same results of play-in, playoffs, and a outing. And hell, even that year that they went to the finals against the Denver Nuggets, it took like history. And even in that time, I remember on our podcast, we kept saying like, hey, we respect what they did. We love what they did. It was fun to watch. But you a damn fool if that's the route you're trying to take every single year. And it feels like they held on to the Jimmy situation a little bit too long, to the point where they didn't get anything out of that. Bam and Tyler Hero, as great as they are, as much as we love watching them and as good as players as they are, I just don't know where that duo takes you. And even in a year like this year, where the East is quote unquote vulnerable, the Miami Heat are still not a team I look at as one of the top teams out East. If the Miami Heat ended up as a top 4 seed or better, I would be completely surprised. It would shock the hell out of me. Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic, it feels like those assets aren't what the Miami Heat think they are or once thought they were. And I was a guy that was a big believer in those guys as well. And maybe this is the year. But I feel like all of the trade packages that the Miami Heat have been selling are surrounded with like a first-round pick, Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic, and something else. And everybody's denying it. Everybody's saying we're good. They're rejecting that. So it must not really have any value. And I just don't know what other ways that they could pivot and go to. How can the Miami Heat get their next star? That's been their joker card. That's been their reverse Uno, is that when somebody is leaving, they've been able to pivot. LeBron left, you pivot into the Jimmy Butler era. Even at the time where it felt like Shaq left, and you had a couple of years of Wade, and then you went and got Bosh and Bron. They've always been able to pivot into their next star. And right now, I just don't see where that next star will come from. They just like have dropped the ball on the Dame and the Donovan Mitchells. Um, I felt like there's one. Kevin Durant is always linked to the Miami Heat. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I don't see going to the Heat at all. It might be time for the Heat to blow it up and rebuild. And it's as odd as that sounds for me to say it, and I know their fan base is kind of going to hear this and be like, "What? We did this, we did that," because it's just not the Miami Heat way. It might be the only way right now. It might be the only way. There's not too many parallels where I could see them getting back to where they, were once were and where they like to be. They have that expectation of being one of the top teams out east, and that's just the way that they've kind of been designed. And I just don't see how that could happen right now with this roster. The Bucks, it's the same conversation we have constantly. Do they want to trade Giannis? Or does Giannis want to be traded? And how long do they drag this out? I am all for Giannis staying here for the rest of his career. I prefer that. I hope for that. The same way I want Devin Booker to stay his entire career with the Suns. In a time where player movement is at an all-time high and like we just constantly got guys switching and switching again, traded, switch it, request a trade, switch, leaving free agents, trade. It's refreshing that we can get an all-time player like Giannis Antetokounmpo to stick with one team. But man, it feels like once every 4 to 5 months, Giannis has a quote about being moved or trade. Like imagine being in a relationship with someone and they every once in a while they have a quote about y'all breaking up or them being with somebody else. It would just be like, bro, what the fuck? And that's what it feels like with Giannis. It's like Giannis wants to stay, but then there's something in Giannis where it's like, should I leave? Because at media day, we got another quote where like Giannis is like, man, I want to be here, I want to stay here, but the Bucks may have to trade me. And it's like, no, they may not have to. They may not want to. But the more and more you bring it up, it feels like you want that. And it poses the question to me of what are the Milwaukee Bucks going to do? How do they feel? What do they want to do? I know they want to keep Giannis, but when they hear Giannis constantly have these quotes and these sound bites about him being somewhere else, about him having to leave, about them having to trade him, do they feel the same? Do they feel like, hey, man, it's better to trade him and cash in? And I'll give my thoughts on that real quick. I know I'm just supposed to pose the questions. One of the other reasons I don't think that I want to see Giannis get traded is because I feel like no matter where the Bucks trade him to, they're going to lose the trade. I just don't see too many destinations where they can trade and get back as equal value. It's already hard enough to get equal value because we're talking about draft picks and things that we just don't know how they're going to materialize. But like I hear like, oh man, like the Knicks could get Giannis. And it's to me, it's like, what are the fucking Bucks gonna get? Draft picks, the Cat and OG Anunoby? Like, if I'm a Bucks fan, I might just want to just ride it out with Giannis. If before the Rockets got Kevin Durant, it's like, could he go to the Rockets? It's like if you're the Bucks, what are you getting from the Rockets? Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks, some draft picks, Reed Shepard. I might just keep Giannis. Giannis to the Warriors. What the fuck what are they getting? Jonathan Kuminga? So like that's where I kind of lose my thought on like having interest in Giannis being traded if I'm the Bucks. Now, if you're Giannis, you want to leave, you're probably going to have to do what you don't want to do. You're going to have to be the bad guy and demand a trade. You're going to have to do the Anthony Davis route where you give up on the team and you go and you let it be known, I want them to trade me. And I just don't know if Giannis has that in him to do that to Milwaukee. And that's why I ultimately do think that this marriage between the Bucks and Giannis will be here for the rest of his career, if I'm just being honest. The Minnesota Timberwolves. This dawned on me while creating all these questions, and I don't want to be negative. I hate being negative. Has their window closed that fast? Like, every team doesn't have this big ass window. Some teams have like this slim window and you got to like get to it or it's poof, it's gone. And they've been to back-to-back conference finals and it looked good the first time against the Mavericks and Luca. Last year, the Thunder were a lot better than them. Like it was a big gap and a big margin in that Western Conference. And that's what makes me feel this way. The team is getting older. They lost a significant piece in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Rob Dillingham doesn't seem to be ready. I know that we're going to really find out in the season, but it doesn't seem like he's going to be ready just yet. If he's ever going to be ready to be like a starting caliber point guard for a team that has championship aspirations like the Timberwolves. Like, you go to the conference finals back-to-back years, you're like itching and scratching to get over that hump. And every year that goes by now is another year of this team getting more expensive and the rest of the league kind of getting better and better. And as great as Anthony Edwards is, I do look at the Timberwolves in the midst of the Western Conference, and I kind of am seeing a window closing a little bit. When I look at how good the Thunder are and how they're going to continue to get better, when I look at how the Nuggets had a masterclass of an offseason after firing their GM and head coach, like they went and like did it phenomenal. The Rockets went out and made a power move. The Spurs are emerging, and we'll get to the Spurs in just a second. But the Spurs are on their way. The Warriors aren't going anywhere. The Lakers have Luka Doncic, like he's not going anywhere. How good will the Mavericks be when they are fully healthy? It's a lot of competition out here, and I'm surprised and I'm happy and I applaud the Timberwolves for going to back-to-back conference finals. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's if they're a second round exit this year. The competition is that strong out west, and if they don't do anything catastrophic this year, I don't even see too many pivots that they can make to readjust this roster to make a power move. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. They're kind of running out of options here. So uh, has the window closed for Minnesota? Keep that on your mind. Let me know. Like, I really want to hear from some of the Timberwolves fans. I want to know how they feel about that in the comments. Like, has the Timberwolves window already closed? You don't want to say yeah because Anthony Edwards is such a young star, but I'm talking about the version of this team that just went to back-to-back conference finals. Is that window done? Was the only real legitimate chance they had was getting past the Luka and Kyrie team? Was that the only real chance? Because now the Thunder are solidified. The Thunder are here, and it's a wide margin and gap. Has the window closed? My New York Knicks, I tied them with the Cavaliers, but I'll spend a little bit more time with them specifically. Again, if not now, when? You fire Thibodeau after getting to the conference finals, which I think puts a lot of pressure on Mike Brown, right? Not necessarily in this first year does he have to be better or get the same type of result, but man, he don't have 4 years to get this shit going. It's like he has his first year, and then next year is like what's happening. And even from a roster standpoint, which I think they've done a really good job building this roster, and I'm excited to see this team into this season with the depth that we now have, adding Yabusele, Jordan Clarkson, Malcolm Brogdon, still have Miles McBride, and we'll figure out if Josh Hart is going to start or come off the bench. Is Mitchell Robinson going to start or come off the bench? We'll see. Mike Brown hasn't letting us know his decision just yet, but I think the depth in itself makes me a lot more excited with the Knicks going into this year, coming off of a year that they had last year where they went to the conference finals. And as fun as that was, I think I like the way that this team looks on paper a little bit more. But again, I pose the same question. If they are not able to take advantage of the Eastern Conference finals, of the Eastern Conference now, after getting to the Eastern Conference last year, Eastern Conference finals last year, then like, how are we ever going to get back when these teams are fully healthy and the main stars of these organizations are back? And it's one of those things where, kind of like the Timberwolves, right? And I'm in real time a little bit more now with the Knicks, but Was last year like it? Was last year it? Or are these the 2 years where, like, it's either last year, which we didn't, we let the Pacers beat us, they beat our ass, and then this year, the first year with Mike Brown, are these the 2 chances? You know, a lot of organizations like to think that they have 3, 4, 5 years of trying to get to that mountaintop. Sometimes it's not. It's just you get 2 tries and that's it. You may get 1 try. You know what I mean? Like the Hawks went that 1 year with Trae Young against the Sixers with the Ben Simmons situation, and it felt like the Hawks will be back, and they have not been. Sometimes you don't really have the luxury of getting 3 attempts to get to that mountaintop. Um, the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're getting to some of the top teams, so we'll kind of breeze through some of these last ones. How do you not repeat? What can stop you? Like, that's legitimately my questions. When I look at this team, you try to find something to nitpick. You try to find some type of thing to exploit or try, figure out some scenario where they can be beaten. You don't want to look at some team as like this unbeaten team because they definitely are not impossible to beat. But when you just had the year that you had, when you won as many games as you won under the circumstances where Chet missed a significant amount of time, Hardenstein had missed a bunch of time, they had J-Dub playing center. Now you come back, you're fully healthy. You have the championship confidence. You have the experience that everybody said you didn't have last year that you showed didn't really mean much because you still wouldn't handle yourselves the right way to win a championship. What can really stop you now? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not an older MVP. From everything I've seen, I'm led to believe he'll have an even better year. You got the Nikola Topic's of the world who's now healthy. How don't they repeat? As much as I would love to see a new winner, because I'm one of those people, it can get boring when one team was just beating everybody's ass. I can't really find a way to convince myself that they aren't going to repeat. Oklahoma City, man, it's this could really be something that like we have not seen ever, where this young team just has a dynasty run. I cannot find a team that's going to be able to beat them in 7 games. The defense, the scoring, the complementary pieces, the depth, the options, the versatility, man, good luck, NBA. Good fucking luck. The Orlando Magic, is Desmond Bane enough? I don't think a lot of people talk about it. This is an expensive basketball team. Paolo is being paid. Franz got paid. Bane is an expensive contract, and you paid Jalen Suggs. Is Bane enough? Because if he isn't, some tough decisions are going to be made. If Desmond Bane isn't enough and you need more, tough conversations are going to be had because you don't have too much more wiggle room anymore. You just don't. And they have a lot of guys that they love in Orlando. They love Anthony Black. They love Jonathan Isaac, right? They love Tristan Da Silva. They love Franz. They love Suggs. But if you're not able to take advantage of this down year, and this is a first round exit for the Magic or something crazy, and they're like getting to the drawing board, one of those names I've named may have to be on the outskirts or on the trade block to go get what you feel like you need. And so, I hope Desmond Bane is enough for them to get to where they're trying to get to, because I like a lot of the guys that they have on the team. Philadelphia. Is this the last rodeo? Is this it with Joel Embiid? Have we seen the last of Joel Embiid? However you want to pose the question. But what my question is the question on top of every basketball fan in the world, especially Philadelphia 76er fans. This is another year where we're coming in here not too sure of the status of Joel Embiid, not too sure what to expect, not too sure of how many games we're going to get. What we do know is when he's on the floor and he's healthy, this team is as good as anybody else. But it's just not too often that he's on the floor. And Paul George and the contract that they gave him with the production that he gave them last year and the games that he played, It's very hard to find confidence in the Philadelphia 76ers. And at some point, the Sixers have to get ahead of this and switch focus and kind of reroute their aim and direction to really, figure out the pivot. But I just don't think that their organization and the expense of this team can handle coming in every single year hoping that Joel Embiid is healthy. They it just it won't materialize into what they need. And they've gotten a lot of young talent: McCain, Maxey, Grimes. You just went out and drafted VJ Edgecombe, Justin Edwards. Like, they have a little youth movement going. And so I could see this kind of be the last year before they just fully invest in the youth movement. And it's heartbreaking and it's tough to talk about because we all love Joel Embiid and he's been through so much. And I think we all want to see him in the playoffs playing at the highest level because he's that good of a talent. But we do have to be real. And the Philadelphia 76ers are the ones who have to answer that question legitimately and figure out what's next. The Phoenix Suns, are they comfortable with the long game? There's something here with the Suns, but you have to be committed to the long game. And Matt Ishbia, is the moment he walked in as the owner of the Phoenix Suns, he was trying to skip steps. They were trying to microwave some success, and it just doesn't happen too much in the NBA. Sometimes you have to be fully committed to the long game. You have to build brick by brick by brick by brick. You have to draft guys and allow them to have 2 or 3 years to develop. You have to allow a coach to come in and really build something and build a culture. Some of those things take time. And when they came in, Ishbia went and immediately got Kevin Durant. I can't fault him for that. If you can get Kevin Durant, you go get Kevin Durant. But then even that wasn't enough. It's like, let's get Brad Beal and let's do all of these different things. Like, it was so fast. Like, we're going to get Budenholzer. We're going to just throw this team together. We're going to win a bunch of games, and it didn't work that way. And I'm now hoping, because I like some of the things they have, right? Like, I like the trade with the Rockets when they got back Green and Brooks. They were able to draft Maluach. I like Ryan Dunn still. I'm obviously a big Devin Booker fan, and I'm excited to see him get back into what he's able to, to do on a leadership level and kind of run everything, because it felt like him and KD didn't really want to step on each other's toes. It was a lot going on. They have a new, young, fresh-minded head coach that they believe in, and he's going to focus on player development for a lot of that young talent that they had. There's something here if they are willing and able to play the long game. But if they're trying to rush the process and skip a bunch of steps, there's all of the excitement, poof, gone, and it doesn't exist anymore. Sacramento, can any of their best talent turn into assets? Can they find a way to get something of value for DeMar DeRozan? Can they find a way to get something of value for Zach LaVine? Can they find a way to get something of value for Sabonis? It just would be so much of a fucking shame for the Sacramento Kings if all of the most productive players that they have can't bring them anything, because none of these guys are long-term fixtures for them to get back to where they were a couple years ago, which lighting a beam and making the playoffs and 7-game series with the Warriors, that felt good for them. And I know them and their fan base loved it so much that they want to get back so eagerly. But I don't know if they're going to be able to do that with Zach, DeMar, and Sabonis. And Sabonis already talked about it going into last offseason. He wants to see where their head is at before he is committed or wants to stay or whatever. That means I'm going to be leaving. But Sabonis is also a particular player that I just don't know if there's going to be 30 suitors or 29 other suitors lining up at the door to get Sabonis. And what does the Sabonis trade look like? How do teams around the league value him? What team that's in the playoff hunt or in the playoff picture needs a Sabonis? A lot of the best teams have a center, right? Like, where is he going to go, to the Hornets? They're like one of the teams that don't have a center. Is he going to go to the Wizards? And I don't know if those teams would even break the bank to give up that much of their cap percentage to Sabonis. So I just feel like the Kings, man, every time I look at the Kings and I want to get some excitement or I'm trying to figure something, it's just like, holy shit, man. Holy shit, I feel bad for that fan base because there's no light at the end of the tunnel when you really dive deep into what's going on. And there are some good players over there. Zach LaVine is playing his ass off. He had a really underrated season in my mind, last year. Like, I don't think a lot of people talked about it enough. But because of the contract and because it's the Kings who haven't been super great in negotiating trades, and because the leverage isn't there with the contract getting closer and closer to the end with Zach LaVine, and I think he does have a $40 million player option. I just don't know if they're going to be able to turn it into an asset. And Keegan Murray, some of his game has kind of dropped off, and it's just a tough scene out there in Sacramento. It's a real tough scene. San Antonio, we're down to our two last teams. Is the time now? Is the time now for San Antonio? And what I mean by now is like when the time is now, you are fully invested, which means they will be ready to trade all of the draft picks at the right time. They'll be ready to, figure out what they're going to do with Dylan Harper. And I'm trying to figure out if I agree with everything that the Spurs have done, because I'm not sure myself. I'm very interested to see the bounce back year from De'Aaron Fox. We still don't know exactly what De'Aaron Fox and Wemby look like. The sample size was just so small that I feel like they may be a year away. Or do they believe the time is now? We'll see them get aggressive during the season and at the trade deadline, where it's like, hey, we got Sohan, we got Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell, we got draft picks. Like, give us another guy. We want to cash in all of our chips and go get a third guy, like Jaylen Brown. We want Jaylen Brown. Remember the Jaylen Brown rumors from the summer? Like, how real is that? Or is the time not now? Is there still one season away before they push all of the chips into the middle of the table to really go after this thing? Do they still want to see more from Vic? Do they want to see what De'Aaron Fox and Vic really is before they pull a power move? The Spurs have one more move. They have one more move. I don't know if it's going to be Brown. I don't know if it's Giannis. The Spurs have a move. I'm telling y'all. Remember, I'm saying it here. There is one more move. Is the time now? Is the eagerness now, or is it for the 2026-2027 season? And then last but not least, the Toronto Raptors. Is this the Giannis destination? Are the Raptors quietly plotting for Giannis Antetokounmpo? Or I don't want to say quietly, but like I look at their moves and I'm so confused by their roster. And then I look at it and I look at it and I look at it and I'm like, wait, is this a team that's like trying to get shit squared away to make a run at Giannis? Because how the fuck do you end up signing Brandon Ingram to that deal before he ever played a game for you, while also drafting CMB, knowing you have Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett and Ingram? You know what I mean? Like, some of the moves make you scratch your head, but then it's like, wait, some of those contracts can make this amount of money. That's an interesting piece that a team would definitely want to buy into. I don't know. I look at that team and I can see that being the Giannis destination. Y'all can let me know in the comments if y'all agree or disagree. I don't want to get the Toronto Raptor fans too excited, but I'm definitely trying to make sense of it has to be the only thing. Are the Raptors preparing to cash in Scotty Barnes, a CMB, and a boatload of draft picks to go get a Giannis Antetokounmpo? Would that even be enough? Because again, I don't even know if what trade is out there that can be valuable enough for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and if the Bucks are ever going to want to be the team to trade Giannis. We'll see. That's it. Those are my questions for all 30 teams headed into the upcoming season. It's a lot of questions, a lot of answers that need to be had. If you watched this episode and made it this far, let me know the questions that you have for some of these teams. Not just your favorite teams, but I think there are some teams out here that are in some make or break years. There's some players that have some pressure for some make or break years. Y'all let me know y'all thoughts. As always, I appreciate everybody that watched. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. I'm out. Peace.